What's going on, everyone? So, Ghostface says in the trailer that where we grew up to Sidney Prescott, and there's a lot of different ways that that could be taken. That could be a lot of different ways to translate that. Another big key thing that gets talked about and mentioned, and literally you see in visual form, is burning it all down. Right? Ghostface wants to tear it all down, wants to burn it all down, burn down the past. Well, the big question then becomes why? Why would Ghostface want to burn down the Stu Macher house, right? Especially if Stu's back or something like that, right? Like, why would Stu want to burn down his old house? Well, I talked about, like, if Stu, imagine coming home, whatever, he gets out of a coma or he's in hiding or whatever, which, again, I think it's ridiculous, but let's just put my opinion aside for the moment, right? Like, imagine coming back and your home in your town is a spectacle, right? Like it's like your house is an Airbnb with animatronics and all that stuff, right? Well, like I said, a whole video on the Stu Macher side of things. Go check out that video after this video because in this video, I want to talk about Leslie Macher. Now, you see an image of Anna Camp. I'm not saying Anna Camp is Leslie Macher, but we don't know who Leslie Macher is or would be if they even do go that route. And a lot of people think Anna Camp could potentially be Leslie Macher. So I'm just kind of using her as visual representation just to make it easier, just so you have somebody, a face to put to Leslie Macher, right? Not saying that it's necessarily her. It could be, very well could be her, but just for argument's sake, I just threw her up on screen. But, if you're Leslie Macher, right, I imagine, especially if it's Anna Camp, right? If it's her character, she's not going by Leslie Macher, right? Like you got to imagine that she's, especially if it is Anna Camp, right? And she is Sydney's neighbor. She's definitely not she's not going around up to Sydney like, oh, hey, I'm, Leslie Macher, and Sydney's like, oh, hey, yeah, that's a funny last name. I think, I don't think it's anything like that. But think about it for a moment, right? If you're Leslie Macher, wouldn't you want to burn it all down? You lost your kid. You lost your brother in multiple ways. Like now you've lived in the shadow of this, just like, your entire life. You're the sister of Stu Macher. At some point you change your name. At some point it's like, you try to keep your kids safe. You try to get back to some normalcy, all of that. And then your son dies. And it's like, okay, I'm sick of this. Like, why wouldn't you want to burn it down? Get rid of the entire memory. Like if you're Leslie Macher, right, you want to get rid of the Macher name. Like, why wouldn't you want to burn down or I guess your house, right? Why wouldn't you want to burn it all down? You know, like think about it. You had to grow up knowing your brother did what he did, knowing the situation, how that probably impacted the family and just the media and all those things. Gail Weathers making books and they're making all kinds of movies about it. And Sydney's a celebrity and all this stuff, right? You kind of just, you know what? Hey, I'm gonna move past it. I'm gonna get on with my life. Blah 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 blah. You know, and then you fast forward at the time, whatever it was, 25 years, and now your son meets his fate at the hands of Ghostface. And it's over, the obsession of Sydney. And it's just like, okay, fine. You know how I stop that from happening? You know how I prevent somebody else from wanting to pick up the knife and, copy the films or, emulate my brother or whatever. I do that. I burn it all down. Get rid of all of it. Make sure that, like, hey, there's no trace. And if people do their thing and people do everything, it's not in the name of Stu Macher. It's not in the name of Billy. Billy Loomis wants to live on an infamy bond. Let him live, but it's not going to be me, right? Like, and that would kind of make sense. Like, and then you have the tie-in to, and you have the motivation. You have everything. right? Like you have why would this Ghostface want to burn it all down? Well, again, it's you want to get rid of the stew stain, right? Your brother kind of messed up, kind of shit the bed a little bit, right? It's like, oh, well, okay, get rid of that. Get rid of Sydney, right? You get rid of all those ties, those connections, right? You show up to the house, you're in Woodsboro, right? Because again, Leslie Macher would have grown up in Woodsboro, so you grew up in Woodsboro. It's the place that you would have grew at. Like your old house has become this gimmick. It's this, they have animatronics and all this stuff. It's Airbnb people hanging out. It's like, okay, I'm just gonna burn it all down. I'm gonna get rid of everything. I'm gonna get rid of the name. I got rid of the name. I'm gonna get rid of my brother's legacy. I'm gonna get rid of all of this, right? And then there'll be no ties, no nothing. People will eventually just it'll all be a blip in the past, right? Look at what my house that I grew up in. Look at what it's become. Look at how foolish it is. Maybe the town is just a joke at this point, right? It's just like look at what everything's become. And it's all because of the Macher name and the Prescott name and all that stuff. Well, let me get rid of it. 30 years it took to reach this point. Maybe 30 years from now it'll be back. You can get back to normal and people will forget about it because Sydney's dead and there's nothing to carry it on. And Stu Macher, the house doesn't exist no more and blah, 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 blah. Right? Like kind of I'll be the last Ghostface to ensure, there are no more Ghostface type things. Right? Like that's essentially what Ghostface is trying to do, right? They want to burn it all down. They want to finish this. They want to be done with it. They want to move on. Well, here's your chance, right? Like here's your moment. Burn it all to the ground. Tear it all down. So I think that's something like you have Leslie Macher. She's the one that comes and ties in. Like, I just think it makes sense to have the connection, have all those things. Like I said, you have, whether it's Anna Camp's character actually as Leslie Macher or somebody else, period. Like I said, just using her as a visual. But I also don't think it's crazy to think that would be the case. My only problem with that is just like, why wouldn't Sydney recognize her, right? I've seen people like, oh, like, it's been 30 years. Would you recognize somebody after 30 years? And it's like, if they were grown, like, the problem is, like, they didn't, like, because of Vince, they basically gave you an insight into how old she is. So she had to have been in her 20s, at least. She definitely was older. But she was likely probably, 15 years older. I mean, she had a son in her 20s. So she has to, even if she had a kid at 16, she'd be 40. So let's say she had a kid in her 20s. She's got to be almost 50. She's got to be, 10 years older than Sydney, 5 years older than Sydney, something like that. Let's say she had a kid at, 22, 23. So again, it's just, you got to imagine that, given all the time, it's just, she had to have been older, right? She had to have been somebody that, that just for the timeline to make sense, right? So it's just, would Sydney not recognize, like, yeah, like, it'd be one thing if you saw him in passing, like Sydney's just walking down the street or in a coffee shop or something like that, and they just, like, come in and, like, you might not notice, but, like, they're supposed to be like best friends in the movie, right? Like they're supposed to be neighbors and best friends, talking every day. They're seeing each other every day. It's the whole reason Mrs. Loomis avoided Sydney, like things like that. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Past question you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What are your thoughts? Do you love the idea? Do you hate the idea? Do you think like, yeah, it makes sense? You have Leslie Macher. She just wants to burn it all down because of her brother, right? Like just get rid of the past, right? Start fresh. Do you think like, nah, that's silly, it's a little ridiculous? Look, it makes more sense to some of the other motives recently. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. I pass question to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. Let me know either way. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. If you enjoy these types of videos, truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, what are you doing? Hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.